And good morning. Welcome in. ESPN 1059 The Zone. WRKS 50,000 watts hitting you every morning. 7 to 10 a.m. morning drive for the SEC. Hope you're doing well. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The show is brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue. The official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds show. We're also, right now you can watch the show on our YouTube channel. Search Out of Bounds Sports. And we're also streaming on the Out of Bounds radio app. So there you go. We want to welcome in the athletic director at MSU. John Cohen joins us on the Miller Lite guest line. John, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. I went back to an analog technology to make sure we can make this work today.
Well, we appreciate it, man. All right, so as of today, will SEC football start on time?
I think we're very optimistic about that. I love the fact that we have 90 days. I think that helps our cause. And I feel like, personally, I do feel like it's going to happen.
Will you have fans in the stands?
I do believe we're going to have fans. The question is, how many fans are we going to have? I know that, there are a lot of states that are making pretty bold statements right now, Bo, about how many fans are going to have in the stands. And again, with 90 days left, state and local guidance can change depending on, health-related matters in those areas. So I think you sit on the sideline and wait. I think a good measuring stick is going to be around 30 days before we open up.
So some of this goes through Governor Reeves. Is that, or each state's governor? How does this work, John?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and every governor is going to rely on their healthcare professionals to let them know. Every state's different. In fact, every county is different depending on if they're a hot spot or not, and, with the statistical data that's available. So, yeah, I really believe that's going to, that's why we all have to keep working together to make sure that we're not a hot spot and that we're in a safe environment so that we can have as many fans as possible.
Okay. So y'all feel like, or the SEC and the schools feel like that this decision doesn't have to be made till around, August 4th or 5th or 6th or something like that, as far as fans, spectators, right?
Well, it certainly doesn't have to be made now, Bo, and I really appreciate that. I'm very thankful that we have time, because I do think this is going to get better. I think as we move on, I don't think it's advisable to make a statement about 40% or 50% or 60% of capacity at this point in time. It could be significantly better than that 2 months from now. So I think that's the responsible thing to do.
What's the feedback been like since the student athletes got back to campus?
Relief. I'm so proud of our Mary McClendon, who handles all of our medical health care testing and for our department. That crew has done such a great job. It was so organized when our football players came in for testing last Tuesday, so organized when they came in for voluntary workouts yesterday. Just really proud of it, and I think our players just relieved to have at least the option to get back to some form of normalcy. Our kids did a great job working out individually on their own and staying in shape. But Bo, I mean, if you're a competitive athlete, you need other people around you to drive you and push you to make you the best you can be.
Sure.
And I got that sense from our kids when I had the chance to talk to them yesterday.
John Cohen on the Out of Bounds show. What do the season tickets look like as far as renewing with everything that's gone on the last 3 months or so?
Yeah, we're in a really good position. In fact, we were way ahead of where we were even a year ago at this time. We put the brakes on it just a little bit so that we can see the guidance we're going to receive. But yeah, I love where we're at. I go back to, I believe it was 4 or 5 weeks ago, we were very close to 80% of season ticket renewal, but we also had a little bit of a waiting list for for new season tickets. In fact, the number, Bo, of requests that we've had for people who have never purchased season tickets for football at Mississippi State was higher than it's ever been. So,
wow.
We were really pleased with that and so excited. And again, Don't want to diminish that excitement, but we're going to cautiously move forward and be optimistic about trying to get all those people in.
Where are you and Dr. Keenum on beer sales?
Well, we know that there's two bills right now that are in committee with the state legislature, and we're going to wait and see what happens with that. I think there's some optimism out there that one of those bills is going to get through and be made into law. If that happens, we're going to reevaluate, reassess our situation here at Mississippi State. We don't mind being the last to join the party on that, but I think there's some very, very responsible decisions that have to be made. And as always, Dr. Keenum and I are always going to, make decisions based on safety and what we think is best for Mississippi State. But we're going to wait and see how those, if those two bills get through committee and are made into law.
Interesting. John Cohen, MSU AD on the Out of Bounds show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. When this all went down in March, did y'all put any kind of construction on hold, John, or did y'all keep going with, plans that were in place or may have been with an architecture firm, or how does that look today, and how did it look in March and so on?
Well, obviously our biggest construction plan moving forward was with the Humphrey Coliseum. It definitely needs a facelift, and our plan was to start in March or April of this spring to get that going. It's probably going to end up being somewhere between a $40 and $50 million project. It is on hold for right now. Why? Because we have to see how much football we're going to be able to play.
Yeah.
And again, we're optimistic. We play 12 games, play a regular season. Are we at 50%? All of that, is going to affect our bottom line. And we really want to start that project as soon as we possibly can. But we're going to need some help from football to be able to get that started.
So with teams like – no, let's stay on the hump just for a second. Then we'll get into to maybe some teams coming into Starkville. Walk me through that. So are you and your team okay with maybe taking seats out but putting more premium seating or kind of club level areas in Humphrey Coliseum? How does that look, John?
We would the current plan Bo, we would lose some seats. It wouldn't be a ton. I think the whole thing would lose a couple of hundred seats to create some premium up top and some premium floor level. But it would not be a significant difference in terms of loss of seating. But what it would do is I think every fan would benefit from what would happen on the concourse level. And folks who want a premium option would have a premium option just like we have at football and baseball.
Mm. And don't you think that's where it's going for collegiate and pro athletics, more of premium and areas where people can move around, and eventually MSU and Ole Miss and Bama and so on could have, restaurants and bars and so on in stadiums and arenas?
Yeah, I agree with that assessment, Bo. I think the modern fan wants to have mobility, and I think the modern fan wants to really bring their living room to the arena.
Sure.
They want to be able to sit in a very comfortable area, move around, visit with friends, have visibility of screens and monitors, and I think that is the future, and we definitely want to give that to our basketball fans here at Mississippi State.
Okay, let's go to like a team like New Mexico where you have a contract with them. I'll play worst case scenario real quick, but I mean, none of us want that, but I guess there's a provision or an out within that you don't owe them a ton of money if the game's not played, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty complicated process. There are natural disaster clauses, and then there's some discussion as to whether you would consider COVID-19 to be a natural disaster. But it is fairly complicated. I do know this: New Mexico State is very, very motivated to play football. We've had a lot of contacts with their athletic department just to make sure that we're working together. I can tell you, Bo, there's going to be some last-second scheduling changes in this country. If there's some hot spots surrounding campuses around this country and football teams can't play, there's going to be some schedule changes So, and the great thing about it is there are professionals out there who specialize in this area that we all subscribe to and depend upon to help us find those opponents. So we are constantly monitoring this. And again, I think I keep mentioning that 30-day period. I think when you get 30 days out, we're going to have a much clearer picture as to what's going to happen.
John Cohen on the Out of Bounds show. Has this driven any discussion, John, with AD's presidents and the commissioner and his team on expanding conference games at some point from 8 to 9 or 10 or whatever?
Bo, there's not much that hasn't been discussed. And when you have the commissioner that we have, Commissioner Sankey, he's not going to leave any stone unturned. We're going to look at every opportunity, every option we have, and that's certainly one of them. There's some complicating factors with moving the schedule around, with either increasing or decreasing the amount of SEC games that you could potentially play. But certainly all of that is an option because our kids came to Mississippi State because they wanted to play, they wanted to compete. We want to give them that opportunity. Our fans, our alumni, the students at this campus, they want to see football, and we want all that to happen. So hopefully it will happen as is for now. But if it changes, I think everything's in place for us to make those changes. Okay,
so I was asking like years from now, if that would happen. So this is a hypothetical. Let's say Mississippi State and Auburn had their teams canceled this year. So with everything on the table, no, that's not a good one. I guess if they already play, you already play them. If
somebody in our league who we don't play.
Yeah, if there's someone in your league that you don't play, like South Carolina, if for some reason you get a game canceled and they get a game canceled, the SEC and the two universities may be willing to put together a game on the fly, so to speak, in either Starkville or Columbia?
Yeah, I think for this year, Bo, I think that's an option, and it's a good option if you have cancellations. But again, I think it's trending toward that not happening at this point in time. We're all hopeful that it's not going to happen. But if it did, I certainly think that's one of the options.
Okay. All right. Let's segue to Major League Baseball. So I'm hearing, I listened to Tom Verducci yesterday, but other people talk about the MLB season, the MLB draft. As someone who coached baseball for a long time, how long does it take? They're talking about a 3-week spring training, John. How long does it take a pitcher like Strasburg or somebody, or Brandon Woodruff? How long does it take a guy to get ready to start to compete at the MLB level?
Well, if you're talking about a starting pitcher, certainly it depends on in that first start how many pitches they're going to throw. So I think three weeks is suitable if they're going to go out and have a start, say, where they're going to throw 50 pitches. But to get those guys back to the 100, 90 to 100, which is the traditional amount for a start when they're going really well, I think you're closer to 5 weeks to get them to that level. And, I was just listening to an interview that our people did with Jonathan Holder. He's acting like he's going to get a call tomorrow, and he's going to be called into service. So these guys have to stay in shape. And I think the majority of them realize that they're not going to get a lot of advance warning. They need to stay in shape. So I'm hopeful that'll be the case.
Okay. So it could be a 3-week spring training, and maybe a Strasburg misses his first start or two to make sure. Well, depending on the pitch count, now they're going to increase they're adding 5 more pitchers to the roster. So that's a whole different ball game. You as a manager / head coach, I guess that gives the MLB managers a lot more to work with for this abbreviated season.
Yeah, I love that because it's giving more opportunity to guys who have minor league service. And let's be real frank here, Bo. They're eliminating a lot of minor league opportunities. I've heard the number 42, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. 42 teams being eliminated from minor league baseball. In one way, it makes me sad. In another way, I think, wow, okay, college baseball has a chance to really make another giant leap forward toward getting kids to the major leagues. So a lot of changes. And I'm not so sure, Bo, I'm one of these people, even if COVID would not have happened, and we all wish it would not have, I'm not so sure that's not the direction this thing was trending anyway.
Well, okay, so with that, do you think, we went through the whole vote on the third assistant full-time money?
Right.
And, you've been tracking that, and you've tracked it for years. Would the SEC go at it alone and say, look, we're committed to this sport. We have decided that we are willing to allow our teams to add a full-time third assistant instead of it going across the board, John?
You're asking a really good question, and it's been a source of frustration within our league because, as you know, the administration of the Southeastern Conference from the commissioner on down, everyone is in favor of a full-time, the third assistant becoming full-time. It's something that should have happened a long time ago. And I just don't think we're in a position anymore where you can say, well, if these schools can't afford that, we shouldn't be able to do it. I think that's a little bit ridiculous because you don't want to hold back a sport. Those 8 teams that end up in Omaha, you want that level of competition to keep getting better and better and better, and it won't get better if you hold back the upper levels of a sport. There's not really another sport where folks would say, yeah, we want to hold down the top. We want to keep the top from getting better. You want that in all sports, and you'd like to think that would happen in baseball as well.
Yeah, and I wonder if the conference would consider adding scholarship money to their teams and rosters without it having to be voted on over whatever it is, 300-plus teams that compete.
I think it's possible somewhere out in the future that could be an Autonomy 5 issue. It won't be just an SEC issue. We can't stand alone in that issue, with that issue, even though we wish we could. But you can't stand alone in that area because, there has to be some continuity with the upper levels of college baseball in terms of the actual rules that you're playing under. So, but I'm very hopeful. And again, I think our league's been very aggressive in that area, which I'm very proud of.
Okay. John Cohen, MSU AD on the Miller Lite guest line. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Blake, do you have a question for?
Yeah, Coach, I do have a question, kind of based on what you and Bo were just talking about and some of the things you said today. It does seem like there has been more because of the obviously different circumstances that have arisen due to the pandemic. It seems like there's been a lot more discussion where you have to even more separate the SEC and the Power 5 from the G5 and some of those things. Has there been discussion, and I don't know how much you can tell us if there has been, but has there been discussion on that Power 5 maybe reassessing their governing body and how they want to govern themselves and either a division in the NCAA or a separation or how have there been any discussions about how you guys govern yourselves as one unit versus obviously 300 teams in baseball? They're not all Power 5.
Well, there haven't been any discussions that I have been privy to. So I can't answer that question for our commissioner. I can't answer that for any of the Autonomy 5 commissioners. And by the way, the commissioner of the Big Ten, his son just reported to Starkville, Powers Warren, his father Kevin Warren, the commissioner of the Big Ten, also a big fan of college baseball as well. But yeah, I can't answer that question because I'm not privy to their conversations. But I do agree with your assessment. I think because of this pandemic, there is a little bit more strain on the Autonomy 5 conferences that want to do more for the student athlete.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 5 rounds, Major League Baseball draft. So that's where we were kind of going here a minute ago. Because of Commissioner Rob Manfred going this direction, you do feel like this will have some kind of impact on college baseball. You're just not really sure what it will be, but there will be some kind of changes in movement in the next year, 2 or 3, even if they add another 15 rounds next year, John, to go to 15 or 20 rounds?
Well, that in conjunction with eliminating minor league teams, the numbers just don't play out in terms of roster sizes in college baseball. And by the way, my good friend Ron Polk reminds me of this all the time. Baseball is the only NCAA sport that has a roster restriction. So those roster restrictions are going to get pushed to the limit because there's going to be more of an influx of players. And this is not just a one-year thing, because it really affects the cycle when you consider that all of these kids who are currently playing college baseball now have another year of eligibility. So you have more players coming in, and you have more players given an additional year to compete. So something's got to give, something's got to change. There has been some rule changes in terms of for this year with some roster sizes, but it's not going to affect just this year. It's going to be something really that's going to affect the sport for the next 4 years.
All right. We'll leave it there. John Cohen, MSU AD on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. John, thanks for your time today. We'll catch up again soon.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a great day.
John Cohen on the Miller Lite guest line. We hit SEC football, some of the facilities as far as the hump, and then I love this Major League Baseball discussion because Blake, I can't wait to see how it impacts MSU, Ole Miss, and the other teams. But he makes a great point. It has to, if you're going to lose 42 minor league teams,
kids got to go somewhere.
Absolutely.
I like the poignant honesty from him because I didn't know what he would say to that question that I asked, because he works for the NCAA to some extent. I get that that's kind of a weird dichotomy of who's in charge of who and yada, yada, yada. But, he acknowledged what we've all kind of talked about. 300 teams in baseball is just a microcosm. It's an example of the bigger issue at hand in all the sports.
Right. But especially basketball and baseball.
Yeah.
Where you have that many teams.
It's just not,
that are eligible that kind of play in the same spot.
That's 292 teams that don't go to Omaha every year. And you could probably boil down about 250 of them that will never go.
Is it that many?
300 teams in baseball could technically go to.
I know it's that many, but, when you have Fresno State winning it and Coastal Carolina?
Yeah, but those are schools that have traditions in baseball and still struggle to get there once every now and then. That's my point.
Fair enough.
You look at Omaha, it is traditionally built up of very strong powers of the same 50 or 60 teams per chance.
Right.
And every now and then you might get an outsider, but your Fresno States, your Cal State Fullertons, they've been there for years. That's not new. You know what I mean? Like you don't have the
right.
That's a lot. Even if it's 200, if 200 teams wake up day one and go, there's zero chance for us to have a postseason.
I'm with you.
What are you even doing?
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Out of bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, driven by your next GMC Sierra truck. Pre-owned or new. Fowler Buick GMC, Brandon Pearl. Visit their website if you're in the market for a truck or SUV. That would be FowlerBuickGMC.com. And Fowler is spelled Fowler. Tom Hudson and his team will take care of you, locally owned and operated. That dealership has been in the same family for decades. Fowler Buick GMC. Your next GMC Yukon, pre-owned or new, at Fowler Buick GMC. Also, the show is presented by Eye Care Professionals and Dr. Kirk Jeffries on Lakeland Drive. Blade-free LASIK and cataract surgery. Eye Care Professionals. Dr. Kirk Jeffries and the crew on Lakeland Drive, just down from Smith Wills. Not but a mile and a half from I-55. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Out of bounds, hour number 2 coming up.